The Gupta Empire became the face of northern India during the Classical Age, and a majority of the region was united under their authority. During what is often described as northern India's golden age, the reign of the Gupta Empire is regarded as a time of law and order as well as cultural flourishing. The rulers of the empire were no strangers to military expeditions but aimed to expand their territory through peaceful means, such as marital alliances, no less than through military action. Though the Gupta Empire had extensive success over centuries, they eventually reached a point of decline. Between the 5th and 6th centuries, invading Huns from Central Asia began to annex and take over the formerly dominant empire's land. As the religions of Buddhism and what later became Hinduism thrived, local and trespassing authorities continued to fight for territory and dominion over the following centuries. The next major shakeup of Indian civilization came with the arrival of Islam. Muslim invaders began to send missions to India the century after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. A series of Muslim sultans began to lead expeditions into India, claiming places such as Sindh, Multan, and Somnath. These incursions brought the defeat of native kingdoms and the destruction of Hindu temples along the way. The Rajputs stood as one of the most determined defenders against Sultan invaders, but they were ultimately defeated by Muhammad Ghori and his forces. As Islam began to work its way into India, other previously principal religions, such as Buddhism, began to decline. Reign. By the start of the 13th century, the era of the Delhi Sultanate dominion arose. The first dynasty within the Delhi Sultanate was founded by Qutb-ud-Din Aibak. The slave dynasty controlled the Sultanate until around 1290 when the Khiljis took over, first by the hand of Jalaluddin Khilji. His family held the throne for less than a century, as the Tughlaq dynasty was next to seize power in 1320. The Tughlaq dynasty technically retained power until 1412, but matters were complicated by the incursion led by Timur in 1398 into Delhi. As the Tughlaq dynasty weakened, the Sayyid dynasty replaced them starting in 1414. The Sayyids lasted for roughly 37 years, but the last ruler's reign was stained by rebellion and discord. As the dynasty fell from grace, yet another dynastic authority took the open throne, this time being the Lodi dynasty. The new dynasty lasted until the death of the then current ruler, Ibrahim Khan Lodi, who was killed in battle at Panipat by the army of Kabul's leader Babur in 1526. Ibrahim's death brought about the final end of the Delhi Sultanate as a whole. Now free of competition from the Lodi dynasty, Babur established the Mughal dynasty, which would end up becoming one of the greatest throughout history. The original Turkic-Mongol imperial power ruled the vast majority of India for over 2 centuries and brought about significant cultural growth and architectural achievements, including the Great Taj Mahal. Despite their immense success, the Mughal Empire began to decline around the start of the 18th century as revolt after revolt began to shake the foundations of the widespread power. Alongside threats from the Marathas and the British East India Company had actually already been in the region for some time, but the situation with the British started to escalate not long after the Mughals fell. By 1857, India displayed increasing control by the East India Company, and the locals were having none of it. What began as a simple revolt by Indian soldiers quickly blew up into a widespread rebellion and became known as the Indian Mutiny of 1857. This rebellion later would be called the First War of Indian Independence, and even though the British were able to quell the revolt after a matter of months, it inevitably had lasting impacts. In response to the mutiny, on 1 November 1858, Britain's Queen Victoria declared that India would be ruled in the name of the British Crown. From that point on, locals maintained their disapproval and anger at the British supremacy over their land, and nationalist sentiments and movements were far from extinguished. The next major move towards independence came when Mahatma Gandhi and the Indian National Congress decided to withdraw all cooperation with the British government, beginning the non-cooperation movement following the end of World War I. When this strategy did not bring the wanted results, Gandhi adopted a new technique in the form of the civil disobedience movement in December of 1929. Essentially, the movement was made up of the declaration of an Indian Independence Day that would be celebrated on 26 January, and complete disobedience of any orders by the British government. Again, Gandhi's strategy failed, and this time he was even arrested while many other rebels were murdered. Still, the British were eventually pushed into the Round Table Conferences, beginning in November of 1930, the second of which Gandhi attended. The conferences marked another failure, and civil disobedience reignited. Gandhi's next attempt, the Quit India movement, again made no drastic progress. World War II brought about new issues as India was forced into the war by the British. But at the conflict's conclusion, a new Labour Party came into power in Britain and showed sympathy towards the fight for. As 14th August turned to the 15th in 1947, India became an independent nation. That's it for today's video. See you in the next video and thanks for watching.